Hello, everyone. We're live. Welcome here.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Oh, that's good. Wow, it's a truly international crowd this morning. We're so glad all of you have joined us. Honestly, I'm very, very excited about the topic today and what our guest speaker, Philip, is going to have to say, and followed up by Dmitri showing us some new twists on some old classics use of FME. Dmitri, when was it that we did our webinar on Mapnik the last time?
It was May 2014, 8 years ago.
A lot of our customers weren't even born yet. So yeah, so it's and actually, Dmitri, you were saying that content is still quite valid.
Yeah, I will explain why we don't just repeat what we had. Then.
Because there has been a lot of changes since then. This idea of going maps to docs, I was looking it up. I think it was 2017 when we started experimenting using FME or adding the ability for FME to write to things like PowerPoint and not Google Docs, Microsoft Word documents. And that ended up being about a year or two process, and we did a bunch of stuff with that. And now it's so wonderful to be seeing customers using that. So, so Elizabeth, should we get started?
Yeah, it's about that time for sure.
So I think we'll start by asking everybody to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Elizabeth, who incorrectly didn't make the slide here. But anyway, Elizabeth, introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a webinar specialist here at SAFE, and I'm helping moderate the webinar here today.
And Elizabeth keeps us all pointed the right direction. Thanks so much. My name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the two co-founders of SAFE Software, and excited to be here today. And I'll go next to our special guest, Philip.
Hi, I'm Philip. I work as a data analyst in the Valuations Office of Ireland, and I'm here to share a small little project that I've done on Mapnik. I'm very excited to see you all today.
And Dmitri?
Well, I'm scenario creation analyst at SAFE. It will be 18 years at SAFE in a month, less than a month. So, and yeah, I always do interesting stuff for SAFE. Whenever something new is added to FME, I experiment with that, create demos, talk about that, and try to get people excited about new functionality.
Yeah.
Let's see whether that works today. Well, it's not new functionality, but I really love Mapnik.
Yeah, it's sometimes the things that have been around a long time deserve some attention, and that's a little bit what's going on today. And what really, I'll just sort of set the table. Don, the other co-founder of SAFE, was at a FME meeting, a virtual one that was hosted by our Irish partner, IMGS. And Philip was a guest speaker there. And Don came back to the office and talked about these amazing results that were had using Mapnik and some of the other things in FME. And so we really wanted to share that with the broader audience that wasn't in Ireland as well. And it looks like we've got a good sampling from all over the world that's going to hear this today. So Elizabeth, when do we turn off our cameras?
I think this is a good time now. We'll save on some bandwidth for the remainder.
Okay, so off we go, but we'll stay disembodied voices. And the next thing is a poll, just to kind of get us ready and going this morning. How do we do this, Elizabeth? Why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, so if you click on the polls tab on the bottom right, you'll see a poll pop up there. And so we'll get everyone to submit their vote, and we'll watch the results come in live. And folks, once you have submitted your vote, you'll also see the results come in there.
So far, it's not looking like too many people use it all the time. Oh, there's one.
That was me, actually.
So there's only sort of social Mapnik users, not really hardcore. Yes. Okay, the results are pouring in.
Awesome. We already have 70 votes. So.
Almost as exciting as watching the Georgia runoff results come in last night. Okay.
All right. Looks like we have.
When do we declare that the polls close?
We're gonna declare it now. It looks like.
Wow. Okay, well, if this was in Canada, the party that says they've never heard of Mapnik would win, the first past the post. So can you share the results with everybody, or does everybody see the results just automatically, Elizabeth?
Yeah, once you've voted, everyone will see the results there. So yeah, it looks like almost half I've never heard of Mapnik. So definitely we'll learn something today, which is awesome.
And only 12 or 16% that have used it, as I think our British friends would say, used it in anger. Which doesn't mean they really were angry. It's some British way of saying that you've actually used it to do something. I think somebody from Britain will have to correct me. But anyway, so thanks so much for tuning in. So many of you that aren't very familiar with Mapnik, you're going to see here how it actually can be used to really streamline some workflows and do some pretty amazing things, and ultimately save a lot of time and money. So we'll carry on from there. So just by way of introduction, we're going to carry on and talk a little bit about SAFE and FME just very briefly. Then we'll look at the Valuation Office of Ireland. That's Philip's chunk, where he's going to show their use case and how they really saved, like basically really helped their business operation through the use of these tools that we're going to highlight today. And then Dmitri's going to take us away and walk us through a bunch of different examples that really focus on what we are calling at SAFE the democratization of data, using formats that are readily available and some other tools in FME to get data there. And so anyway, that's what we're up to. For those in other parts of the world, Philip may cover this, but just to sort of seed it, the Valuation Office is a similar function as what we have here in Canada that we call the Land Assessment Office, that basically assigns values to property and then is able to defend that ultimately so that we can do the one thing in life that's certain. Well, two things in life are certain, death and taxes, but the one thing we're interested in here today is the taxes part. So that's the ultimate reason for the valuation of property. And there's a lot of work, a huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to power all that. And Philip's going to give us a glimpse into some of that. So the issue that Philip wrestled with, and he will tell more about this, is that report generation can eat up days, if not months. And often the data that's needed for some kinds of reports has to be gathered from a variety of different places. And so that's really what FME rides over the hill and helps assemble and solve. So again, data integration with FME, pulling that data together, converting those maps to images, and then ultimately writing them into documents, either spreadsheets or good old-fashioned Word documents. Sometimes people use PDFs. We're not talking about PDF today, though. And at the end of all this, you have the ability to automatically generate content. And as the slide author says, this puts us in a position where we have a recipe for absolutely fantastic time savings. And that's really the head snapper of this one. So this is a wee little bit about us at SAFE Software. We've been around, it seems like a very long time. Actually, it's our 29th birthday in 6 days. So we'll be, no, let's see, yeah, 6 days. December the 13th is our birthday. So we'll have a big party with all the SAFE staff a few days after that. Our first Christmas/holiday party in 3 years. So it'll be a bit of a reunion, and we're pretty excited about that. We say, according to our Salesforce, there's about 16,000 organizations around the world that make use of us. A lot of countries, which I have not been to. It was interesting. I started adding up all the countries I've been to, and it's a pale shadow of the places FME has gone, but really a global thing. Partners around the world that deliver services. SAFE itself does not. We just focus on making the product. We have a very active community at safe.com. If you go there and hit the menu item for community, you can get in there and people ask and answer questions. And that's a shot of our building on the left-hand side, where on a good day, one office in 4 has somebody in it, but still it's a great place where the team can get together from time to time. We make a variety of products within our overall platform. And so we have the desktop where you author and create the data flow from A to B. And those little blue boxes you see in the picture are these operations that rearrange data. And one of those blue boxes is the Mapnik Rasterizer, which Dmitri will be showing. And I was going to make this comment. Don has mentioned that he didn't know that we chose the best name for Mapnik Rasterizer when we went to name it. long ago. It's because the underlying technology is called Mapnik, but judging from this, it's not the most popular household term. And so maybe we should just call it a rasterizer. Maybe that even isn't a household term. I don't know. But anyway, that's just one blue box inside of the desktop where you author and run these things. Then when you have that all going great, you can put it up to a server, either hosted in the cloud or on your premises. And then those workflows run automatically. Whenever someone submits a web form, whenever it's 4 in the morning, whenever a file arrives in the directory, whenever there's a webhook call, these are the kinds of things that automate data flow using FME Server. FME Cloud is really just hosted FME Server. And we do have some mobile apps for viewing your data in augmented reality or running these FME Server workspaces from out in the field. All of that together gives us our platform. We have been going for a long time, as it shows here, all these different formats or data types that we have worked with. And so FME is able to integrate and work with data of all these different kinds, starting with CAD and GIS back in the 90s to today. We would say we're working on different augmented reality outputs, and very popular in the last week, AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence. We actually are contemplating, Elizabeth, am I allowed to say that we're going to have a webinar on using FME for some AI things? Can I talk about that or not?
You heard it here first, folks.
So on the 18th of January, if I've got my date correct, we're going to be doing a webinar showing some of the ways you can employ FME today using automation, the FME workspaces to access and do pretty astounding things today with the services that OpenAI has. And we'll do a bit of musing about what might come tomorrow, but looking forward to sharing that with you then. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Philip, who's with the higher executive. He's a higher executive officer at the Valuation Office in Ireland. And Philip, thanks so much for joining us today. I know it's late where you are, and we'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's nearly the end of the day in here, but yeah, it's good to talk to so many interested people around the world, and it's so good to be in a platform like this. Yeah, so my little job in here is to talk about a small project we have done in the Valuation Office. As Dale has mentioned, I'm a data analyst in the Valuation Office of Ireland, and my name is Philip Jacob. So without further ado, I'll start talking about what I have done as part of our office project. So in our office, we did an automation audit back in 2019, and the audit revealed that there are two documents, specifically this one particular document that has been extensively used in the office, which took a lot of human hours to get generated. And it was manually generated by people doing collecting the data together, putting it all together and all that. So the automation audit revealed that if we could automate the document to about 80%, it'll reduce the human hours from 17% approximately to less than 1%. So calculating it in numbers, usually a person takes 20 hours approximately to generate one of these documents, which is in the case when all the data is readily available and handy to use. And most of the cases, it wasn't the way it was. Always people had to find, investigate, and get data from different sources. So the 20 hours is an approximate good scenario, which is not normally the case as well. But once we automated it, we could make it in less than 3 minutes on an 80% completion. But that doesn't mean that the whole document is generated in 3 minutes, but it will not take more than half an hour from there on to finish it off, which you will see as I'm going through the slides. So this is what Elizabeth and Dale would be very excited to see. It saved us approximately or more than 42,000 years, so hours a year, as on human hours I'm talking. So to talk in detail about the document, I would like to say this is a legal document, and when I want to reiterate, it's a legal document means it has to be perfect. It is going to a court, which is specifically for the valuation services, and everything has to be perfect on it. Otherwise, the case will be dismissed straight away. We'll no chance of standing there if we have something wrong with it. So, the legal document have all these kind of details in it, like from maps, the valuation of a property, images, calculations, comparable properties, or the properties which is relative to the property we are talking about, based on the valuation or based on the location, all that comparable properties, other information that is relevant to the property, all that was factored in a document. So you can see the variety of data that is going in there. So the solutions benefits, the benefits for the organization, as I said, to put it into terms, I put it in 4 different headings there. Operational benefit is to readily make it available to the person in a matter of minutes with all relevant data in a uniform source. So everybody is using the same map, everybody is using the same styling. All that was operational benefits. Economical benefits were, as I said, 42,000 hours a year. I don't think I have to say much about that any further. Technical benefits were too many as well. So every time when we had a change of rule or a change of policy, there was a change on the document, which then has to be trained. All the staff has to be trained to get to put the document in that way. But now, since we have this FME solution, we can do the alteration in one place and it'll affect all through the organization. So it was straightforward from a technical aspect that, one source of change and it'll affect the whole uniformity of the document. And legal requirement compliance was important as well. As I said, it's a legal document. Even though the scope was very, very small, we managed to do a lot of enhancement on the document. As I mentioned earlier, when people were generating of their own, there were people who were using Google Maps for mapping. There were people using BIM maps. There were people using all kind of OSI maps. OSI is the Mapping Organization of Ireland. So different maps were used by different people because they were using the maps they were comfortable with. Now, since the single source of mapping came in, the maps were all uniform, one from one location, always in the same pattern, which helped a lot. The document looks legit and clean. There was lots of other data that we managed to incorporate with it. The one that was so much appreciated was the Google Maps and the Google Images. All the Google Images associated to an X and Y location was pulled in, and the user was given a choice whether to keep it or to remove it. Also, I forgot to mention, the end result of the project was a Word document. And the reason why it was a Word document is because the document automation has been done only up to 80%. The 80%, after 80% completion, there has to be a 20% human editing to go with it to make a completion, because there was no possibility of making an automation to 100% because it's person specific, case specific as well. So it has to be altered. So we had no other choice of going anything bar Word document. So Word document was chosen just because people wanted to edit it. And in that sense, we could put anything in that document, enhance features, additional values, anything. And the user had the flexibility to remove it whenever they want. So that gives a lot of flexibility to the end user. So this is an example of one of those maps. So as you can see, there is a subject property which is marked in red, and a comparable property which is marked in purple. This is where Mapnik Rasterizer actually helped me a lot, because when you see you're just seeing one map with 2 points, but that is because there is only one property associated with it. There could be 10 properties associated with it. Also, there are various scenarios where in this case, you can see the subject property and the comparable property is very close to each other. Most of the cases it wasn't. There were situations where my subject property and comparable property was 90 kilometers far away from each other. And In those circumstances, what happens is the scale of the map changes, the scale of the text has to change, the scale of the circle, the object has to change, the scale of the compass, where the compass has to, even though my compass is not in the right place in that map, the scale of the compass has to change, the scale of the text that goes underneath for the copyright information has to change. Everything will change. So MapnikRasterizer helped me to put all that in relation to the size of the map, and that was very helpful. To give you a quick look at what I mentioned there, this is another map with 10 properties or 11 properties in it, and you could see the scale, and that's half of Ireland being shown in there, and you can see the variety of it. Now, after generating this map, again there was roadblocks for us, because the maps will come, some maps will be generated horizontally because the properties were in a horizontal line and it only scales for that. Some maps were vertical because of the layout of the properties. But end of the day, you have to bring it into one single size and put it into a Word document as that fits in an A4 page. We had to do calculations for that to put that in place. And again, when you do that, you don't want to lose any bit of the map either. So you have to rescale the map. So we had to calculate the length and the length, or actually the distance between the properties. We had to calculate the size of the map, and then we had to do calculations to bring it into an A4 page. My friend Gavin Park from IMGS actually helped me doing the calculations, which I still don't understand half of it, but it works all right. I have no problem copying that onto anybody who would like to see it. This is another map that we had to bring in. This is a map of the whole county, as in a locality, if I may correctly. So this in the new legislation that we were complying to, we had to demonstrate all the roads and has to have road names and all that in it as well. So the FME had to pull it from an API, which helped me a lot, because otherwise each of the time that I need this, I had to go to an open data website and get it downloaded. But FME could easily pull it from the API, which was quite helpful as well. And then again, putting it to Mapnik Rasterizer, giving the heading that I want to give it, and bring it out was quite helpful as well. Just to show you what my project was there, as you can see, that one bookmark corresponds to that one map that I showed before. And the most important thing I want to show is that there were 603 transformers that I've used, and probably Mapnik Rasterizer is one of the most used in it. And this one bookmark is, as I said, is generating one single map. That's all what it does. That's all about maps. And then it comes to additional documents. Along with maps, as I said, this is a report, and the report had all kind of features going in it. There was images, there were PDF documents. All these needs to be attached as part of the generating the report, and all these need to be in Word document as well. So FME was quite helpful in using the PDF conversion and all that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we incorporated Google Images, which was quite helpful as well. This was something that we got from an open data website for Ireland, where we give the location of a particular property, the average distance to a nearest police station or the average distance to the nearest school was all sourced in, so that it could be used when we are talking in the court about, okay, this is the average distance to a particular police station, or this is the average distance to a bank, as far as this county is or this locality is concerned, and all that. This was all additional information that we could provide as part of the automation, which nobody expected to happen, but all on a sudden this all became available to the person who was generating the document. Before that, none of this were considered when creating this document. So they were all happy because they all got these extra features. And as I mentioned earlier, because it's a Word document, they could always delete it, edit it, and they could do whatever they want with it. So that was quite helpful. Calculation, I don't think I need to talk too much about calculation, but there was calculations involved and in the document as well, where the area was given and the value was given, and then the total value generated of that area and all that kind of stuff was calculated based on the property details. Dashboards were incorporated. That's a bit of a cheat for me to say dashboards, because I incorporated dashboards as an image for the time being. That is something we're planning to enhance it in the next development phase. So to give you an example, as it says, picture says 1,000 words. The map on the left-hand side is a map that was previously used, and the map on the right-hand side is a map that is generated by the machine, and you can see the difference, and that is what we brought towards the office, and they embraced it big time. This is a sample document, as in the whole of a document. As you can see, the variety of things that is in the document. And you can see from the whole document, there is a few places that you can see red text in it. And that red text bit is the only bit that the user need to change once the automation is complete. So once they get this document, they need to go through all the bits in red. And once they have finished, that's it. The document is ready to go. That was the idea behind it. And obviously, they could delete things that they don't want. That was another thing about it. This is what my workbench looks like, and that's all from me about Mapnik Rasterizer and my little project in Valuation Office.
Wow, thanks so much, Philip. This is so interesting and timely as well. I hadn't absorbed prior the very clever thing that you had done by coloring the text that needed changing to help the proofreader later on. That was a great insight that you must have had.
Yeah, I was told that because otherwise it will be skipped and people might not notice it. So we were asked what could we do, and that was the one thing that we could come across with.
Yeah, that's simply brilliant. In this era of automating the production of documents, I think that having clear what the human needs to look at was a great thing. Now you were mentioning before that, and if anybody else has questions, please chime in. But I did have one that I was going to ask Philip. So before you began this project, how much experience did you have with FME?
0.
Oh, okay. And so this was starting from nothing to kind of getting to this point. How much elapsed time was that?
It took me 6 months to learn, and believe me, I'm a zero GIS person, so my technical knowledge on GIS was quite null, I would say. But again, as I said, Gavin from IMGS helped me a lot as well with his expertise, and also my boss Fran Power had a good insight on GIS as well as Philip Kelly. So they all helped me out to get there. Yeah, but it was a 6 months project, all right. Yeah.
Excellent. What we might do is just spend a moment or two looking through some of these questions. We have one from the city of Burnaby. They're asking, is it possible to share this workspace, or do you consider that sort of proprietary from your environment?
I have no problem sharing the workspace, but I don't know whether it will be able to run it because of the data that goes with it, So,
well, yeah, then what we'll do afterwards, Herman, and we'll get that into the webinar follow-up. And yes, it'll come with the proviso that, hey, this is for sort of inspiration. You don't expect to run it because, of course, it needs all of the environment. But nonetheless, I think there'd be some good learnings to be had by looking at that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I have no problem sharing it.
Courtney asks, how the people who used to do this work, were they unhappy? Like, did you wipe out their work?
They were always complaining that they don't have time for anything else because they have to generate these documents, and now they're happy. And initially we had questions on, okay, so I'll end up with no job, but now they found that they have better things to do now.
Yes, and that's the same sort of thing. This new chat GPT, the new artificial intelligence chat that can write documents and things. some people are asking, even at SAFE, is this going to mean I don't have a job? And the answer is no, you're going to be able to get more done. It's kind of like the Steve Jobs bicycle for the mind. It's a way of getting more done and doing higher value work. So Dejan asks, what's the most challenging part? What did you find to be the most challenging part?
Once I figured out that the one that always caused problems was the bringing the PDF document into the attachments. It always had one problem or the other, but finally it works now without a fault at the moment. Yeah, that was one challenging bit, as well as the Mapnik Rasterizer, because to organize the sizes and the font size and everything based on the size of the map was not straightforward. Believe me, I had to go a lot of iterations to get that right. Yes.
Yeah. No, I can imagine both of those for sure. I didn't even know before today that you could embed a PDF in a Microsoft Word document. So that was what we say is count that day lost when you don't learn a new thing. And there, I think I'm set for the day. We'll do one more here, which is someone, Wilfredo, asking, what's the trigger for the automation process? Does what starts this going? Is this running on FME server, or does
no? It's not, because we have our data locally on an on-premise situation, so we cannot bring it into a cloud or an automation process. So I have to run it within the organization. So we have a web app where the people can put in the valuation, the details of the property they want to bring in, and it'll kick in from there, and the machine will send an email to the person with the document.
Okay, so it runs in that way, like it's basically a web form internally, and then off it goes.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's self-serve effectively.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And I don't know if you mentioned it, but I know when you and I talked before, these documents ultimately get used as part of court cases.
It is. Yeah. It is a fully. It is used as a court case. It is a court case document, basically.
Yeah.
It's our representation on the court case.
Yeah. I'll just take Mary's question, and I think you may have hinted at this, but did you have opposition from anywhere in the organization, or did everyone get the miracle as she's written?
There was always pushbacks on many things, but once they start using it, it's you. And I would say there are still people who don't want to use it, and it's up to them. But it's been used extensively.
Excellent. Well, I think, Philip, I know that you've stayed late to help us, and I will let you off the hook for now. If you're able to hang around till the end, maybe there'll be some more questions. But
sure.
I just want to express right now the thanks from Safe Software and the whole audience today for you to share this absolutely inspiring story. And congratulations on such an ambitious first FME assignment as well. This is really an amazing accomplishment you've done.
Thank you very much, Dale. Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, and with that, we'll hand it off to Dmitri, who's going to put on his teaching and tutorial glasses, I guess, and show us a little bit how the making of this type of thing can be done. So Dmitri, let's hand it off to you, and you can take us home.
So I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it, everyone?
Looks good.
Perfect. So yes, we mentioned that our first Mapnik webinar was in 2014, and at the beginning we thought we would do a refresher webinar, just maybe go over old demos. But I watched that webinar, and I think those materials were pretty good. And we mostly talk about how we can prepare data for rasterization. This time we decided to concentrate in the spirit of previous presentation, previous speaker. We can show how we take the results of rasterization and bring them to the documents. But let's begin with just a simple demo for everyone who does not know how Mapnik works. We will show it right now, and then we will go into the details. Let me switch to my first workspace. So this workspace is missing Mapnik Rasterizer. I will add it right now. Place it here. And as our input, we will take just a single shape of the country that is probably most popular in the world right now, which struggles with unprovoked aggression from my home country, for which I will be always sorry. But we have here this simple shape representing Ukraine. And we will try to send it to Mapnik Rasterizer and do something with it. So here is Ukraine and our input port. And here we define, in the column of symbolizers, we define different rules, how we would like to see this shape styled. We have multiple different symbolizers, and any geometry can be symbolized in different ways. So we will first symbolize it as a polygon, and we can pick some, natural color for Ukraine, yellow. And we also can just repeat this line, create another rule for the same input, and say that will be a line. And let's change to blue. And we will specify its thickness with maybe 6 pixels. And this will be it. Then we will say how big our output raster should be. We will say 1000 meters. So 1 pixel will represent 1 kilometer. Okay, and we can run this. So I will run it as with feature caching. So we can inspect what happened right here. So something like that, but it's probably not what we want, right? So first of all, why we have this white background around, we can specify transparency. We will say white background, but make its alpha channel so that regulates transparency on the background, fully transparent. And we can run it again. And that's what we get now. But that's not it. We can style this shape with different symbolizers. So I can just repeat it. So for example, we can add text, a label, not shield, text. And we will take that from an attribute. And let's use a Ukrainian name. And I have a nice font somewhere here. This one. We can specify its size, pixels, and color. And here, as you can see, there is a lot of settings for setting how text should be positioned. We will talk about this a little bit later, but it's Mapnik Rasterizer. Mapnik itself has a really big, really powerful labeling engine. For now, it's good, and maybe let's maybe also add an icon or a point with an image. This one. But we would like our text be above the point, so like that. We can run this again. And we don't see our text, right? So again, I talked about our powerful labeling engine. Here, one of the parameters says whether we allow or do not allow overlaps. And we say, yes, we can. We allow overlaps, so that text would overlap this icon. So something like this. And imagine we would like to create a poster, for example, for supporting Ukraine. So we can also add here a background, maybe let's say some nice Ukrainian landscape like this one. And maybe last time, let's have a look. And we think it's all good, so I will turn off the background map so that it's square, something like that. Or maybe let's also make the polygon styling. Let's make it semi-transparent. I will go to polygon and say opacity 0.25, something like this. So that will generate an image for us, but that's not all. So we would like to do something with it. for example, create a poster, a PDF. So let's create a PDF first. Here is the section we create a PDF from this. I need to pass the attribute further from the source, the name of the country from here. I will just use it in group by. I will say carry through name in English and Ukrainian. And so how we create PDF files. So first, let's create a title. We will call it support and the name of the country. And here we will create another text. Actually, Safe Software raised some money for Red Cross Canada to pass it to Ukraine back in spring. So we will add this style with PDF styler, setting colors and fonts. And here we have a transformer called PDF page formatter. So basically, all the objects that come into this transformer will know how they should be placed on the page. So here is our page. So that text where we say title, so it will go on top, then our raster, our image, and some text below it. So maybe for you to understand how it all works, maybe let me add one more object. So this will create another input port. Here you can see it. And I will add another text. I will just copy this one. Up. Connect some input. I won't even style it. I will just, to make it quick. And here I will say webinar. Let me just type it here. Webinar demo. And that will add another objects to our PDF. So now we are ready to write everything to PDF. Here I also write some HTML. So the same image, I save it to disk with feature writer. Then I send the output to HTML report generator. Again, I add a header, then insert the image, some local image, and some custom HTML. It's just, a simple paragraph with some highlighting. This is it. And let me run this workspace. So, and here I did a little trick. I used system caller, which has very simple syntax, Explorer, and the path to the data set that was just written, this HTML, we wrote it here, and it opens me right away in the browser. So it means that you can use your browser for, instead of Data Inspector, for HTML files. And let's also have a look at our PDF. Move it to this page. Here it is. So here is our poster and webinar demo, the object that we just added. That's how simple you can create these documents. Now let me switch back to slides. So here is this workspace and our output. So what is actually Mapnik? It's a library, it's a cartographic rasterizer that exposes interfaces in C++, Python, or Node, but you also have to know some XML and CSS. With Mapnik Rasterizer, with our transformer and FME, all you have to do is just go and configure some rules inside our transformer and get the same beautiful results. What is interesting about Mapnik, it has sub-pixel anti-aliasing engine. It means that your width does not have to be, line width does not have to be integer. It can be something like 0.5 or 1.5. And we showed that during our last webinar, how, and I will show that again today, how great that can be. It uses the ability of human eye to interpolate somehow with our brains the pixels that just have different brightness, and that instead of a zigzaggy look of a character on the left, you get a very smooth and nice look of the characters on the right. So we talked about symbolizer. We tried quite a few of them, and we didn't touch building symbolizers, as they create something like a 3D perspective look of the buildings, but it can be not necessarily building. It can be just about any polygon. Line pattern symbolizer replaces line with some linear pattern. Markers are like points, but they're good for things that require rotation. In our bonus demo, I will show how that works. Polygon pattern symbolizer allows you to fill your area with some patterns. Again, I have that in my demos. Raster symbolizer allows you to have a raster background. Shield symbolizer is a combination of point or marker and text. And the best example would be highway shields, where you have some icon and a text, a number of highway on top of that. So that will be another demo that we have today. So we talked about multiple layers per input, so different ways of styling it, and you probably you saw how it all works. I will quickly go over demos that we had in 2014 because I think they were really good, and I updated the workspaces that were created for that webinar, and we will include them in the materials for this webinar. So we talk about external style definition, so you don't have to go into your transformer and change colors, line styles, and everything in fonts. You can define all that in an external file, for example, Excel, and whenever you need to make a change, you would just type something in here and run the workspace without going into the all the parameters, and the change will be reflected in your output. And that was one of the demos we showed 8 years ago. We talked about labeling engine, and I really like how it writes, street names along curvy streets. You can see it right here, and I will show another example where how great Mapnik labeler is later today. Comp op operations, it's a compositing operations. It's how layers interact with each other. In most cases, you probably want just to put things on top, but sometimes you would like your layers to interact. It's some kind of map algebra where you can multiply pixels or lots of options. It's a probably can be a webinar by itself just to talk about compositing operations. But I would say in 95% of cases, you probably don't need that many of them. Compound line style. So I talked about patterns that you can place along lines, but by combining dashes and gaps, you can also create some interesting lines and different width. You also can create different line styles. So you can see them on the right bottom. It's not some raster input to create those styles. It's just pure vector input where I just specify different sizes of dashes, gaps, and their width. And that workspace also will be included into the materials of this webinar. So that was our example from 8 years ago. We just created a street atlas for Vancouver. And our second example, or third example from that webinar was creating a topo map where I took some natural resources Canada data and created a map in the scale 1 to 10,000 and then generalize it to 1 to 25,000. And we had this webinar about the generalization later, a couple of years later, where we talked a lot about doing it properly. In this webinar, I didn't do the right job with everything where I could, but we mentioned a few things about generalization. I also created in that webinar, and you will see those materials, web tile. So it's another kind of document and HTML for that. So and you can see how the scale changes as I zoom in and out and everything else. So this is also available for you as a download. And now let's switch to this year demos. Oh, no, that was the fun part of the last webinar. It's a challenge that I had, so how we can use contours for showing our faces. Some area in Iran, very hilly or mountainous, which I use as a source. And I take a picture and with some simple actually tricks, put our faces onto those contours. And that was you can try this as well if you follow this link. It was probably created before we had FME Cloud as powerful as it is now, and maybe it's not as convenient, but it all works.
Yeah, it's not. I just tried it now, Dmitri. It's not an FME server app, but it does work. And the one thing I would say is that even in contours, I looked a lot younger in 2014.
I would say I look better now than I looked in 2014.
I'd say you both haven't aged a day.
Okay, so now let's switch to our second demo, where instead of having just a single object, I will throw in lots and lots of different layers. That's actually a neighborhood where I live. Where is this workspace? Here it is. It's a neighborhood. We have here some raster background, streams, sidewalks, roads, and underground utilities and fire hydrants. In this case, we would like to create a spreadsheet showing the vicinity of fire hydrants, for example, to go for an inspection. So we throw all those things into Mapnik Rasterizer, and I will open its properties. And here for you, I added this label saying what probably makes sense to pay attention to. Here I show how I label hydrants. Let's have a look. So everything else is pretty simple. Background, it's just a raster to which I set opacity to 0.5 so that it's not that bright. Then I place contours, just some brown color. Maybe this is interesting. Here I use a conditional, set the value conditionally. So if it's a depression, then I make it a dashed line. So 20 is a dash, then a gap, a dash, and a gap. Otherwise, the gaps will be 0, so it will be a continuous line. So this is it. And fire hydrants, where are they? Text for fire hydrants. I use simple labeling here. It's a point. I label a point and make it simple. So you see these characters, they mean, so first I try to place a label on the right side, on the east, if not then on the west, if not then northeast, and so on. Then I also say, so if this size, 20 pixels, does not work, try 18. If that does not work, try 16. If that does not work, try 14. But here I say allow overlap, no. So that we guarantee that if the hydrant gets a label, it's it does not cover anything, or nothing covers it. So this is it. So, and that creates us the map. But again, we would like to use it for creating a document. In this case, we will write it to Google Sheets. For that, we cannot embed images to Google Sheets at this point, although I know Dale requested that from Google to add this capability. We send that to S3, to Amazon storage, and then here we create a simple attribute, show in a cell an image that is stored at this location, and use hydrant number as file name. That's how we write them. And this is it. So, and this is Google Sheets Writer. I forgot to mention that we also write everything to Trello. Who knows what Trello is? It's a system for creating cards for actions to do or something like that, something for working on projects. So, and as you can see, we already wrote a single card here during our first demo. But now let me run this second workspace. I will simply run it. So what will happen? So I will create this image. We will send some images to Amazon S3 and save them to Google Sheets. So I will switch to that sheet right here, which you can see it's empty right now. And it is always a scary moment. So something is happening like really far from my computer, somewhere in the cloud, some interactions between Google and Amazon. But it should take just a few seconds before we see something in this spreadsheet. Here, I will, and the output. So that's our output map, which is pretty big. So I made just some small zones around each hydrant. But let me just show you in the spreadsheet. So I will make all the cells bigger, like that. So our fire hydrant and the label and the situation around it. Of course, I would say that exploring this in virtual augmented reality is a lot more interesting than in a spreadsheet, but I think this also works quite nicely. So this was our second demo and our last demo today. And we have more demos afterwards, but we don't want to run over time, like by a lot. So you can stay afterwards and see those bonus demos. But if you have to leave at 9, we will share all these workspaces with you that I showed today with all the data, so you can run them, you can adjust to your workflows. And of course, you always can ask me any questions today or anytime. It's a little bit bigger workspace, but not much is happening here. It's nothing scary, I'd say. So first of all, so I take just some lines for Vancouver area and Lower Mainland, reproject to more convenient projection for conical projection to UTM. And then I separate roads from highways. I take only highways. And here you may find it interesting. So where I separated divided highways, I joined them into a single line by using buffer, dissolver, and center line replacer. So instead of a divided highway that would produce undesired rasterization, I create just a single line. And then I send that to Mapnik Rasterizer. And also I have a background from Sentinel imagery. And in this case, I use shields for combining highway number and an icon. Here I have this shield symbolizer. So in this case, I specified the path to the shield and the text that I should use for the highway. As our document output, we will use Microsoft Word. So, and all this is just styling, creating Microsoft Word objects. So this is creating a title page. It's pretty simple. I created some attributes, the atlas name, so it will be multi-page document when we created it. So what is this, and so on. Page number. Then I just say how I should style all those objects. And at the end, here I have a page break. And here I have lots of attribute creators which simply create a sort order on the page so that it guarantees whenever I make any changes to that, I enforce a certain order of the object on the page. Here I create an index for the map and also style some objects. Maybe I should mention also this part. So this creates actually pretty big image. I think like 20 by 15,000 pixels. I tile them into multiple smaller images, and those will be the pages in our atlas. So, and if I run this, it takes about, as you can see, I just tried it a while ago, just over a minute. We don't have that much time. I will just go straight to the output. Here it is. So our title page, and this is the picture from my house to, well, Vancouver part of Florida mainland. And we can scroll through the pages. All the highways shown here with the labels. I can maybe zoom in a little bit. Not sure why it's not. Does not allow me to zoom, or maybe click like that. Huh? I'm not sure why my zoom button is disabled.
It's because Microsoft Word isn't a GIS, Dmitri.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's a different mode. So as you can see, I also created this index so that you know where on the page you are. And here you can see our shields, standard British Columbia and Trans-Canada Highway shields. And I placed those numbers from my data set. So this is it. Yeah, and we can check our Trello. Here it is. And I didn't run this workspace, so we added this hydrant example, but you don't see the highway example because I didn't run it for the sake of time. Here is the output. So some useful links to old webinar, to another webinar about high quality cartography we had last week or 2 weeks ago, webinar on cartography with FME, which was held, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and some other useful links. Elizabeth, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so as a thank you for you all joining us today, we do have a community badge code that you can redeem in the community. If you are part of the community, we definitely encourage you to check it out. It's a great place to network with other FME users alike. And I have received word from our colleague, Mark Ireland. It sounds like the page to redeem this is actually down this morning, but should be up and running shortly. So definitely hang on to that code and you'll be able to redeem it soon.
Now it's 9 o'clock, so and those of you who have to leave, thank you for attending this webinar, but we will go over a couple other demos and then answer questions. So I talked about markers, that they're similar to points, but as instead of images, you use SVG files, which are vector files, and it also means that it's easy to rotate them without sacrificing quality. And it's very nice to use markers for things that need orientation. So if you place a marker on a line, it takes the orientation of that line. So you don't even have to think about rotation. And here I show how we can create an integration with ImageMagick for creating an animation. So I generate multiple files with Mapnik and then just assemble them into an animation in ImageMagick. So that's the result. So you can see the car driving around my neighborhood, and I did nothing to do its orientation. So just because it's a marker symbolizer, it does it automatically. I think it looks pretty nice. And the last one, I just watched this new series on Amazon, The Rings of Power, and got inspired, started to look for things online, and came across this blog by John Nelson, who creates lots of really beautiful maps with ArcGIS. But I decided, so I went to this blog, I downloaded the materials, the patterns, the icons for it, and created the Lord of the Rings style map for the city where I live, Port Moody, in Lower Mainland. Just for fun. And I'm not even going to share this workspace with you because it's pure creativity. So, but I would like you to get inspired and maybe try something like this. But if you would like to get this workspace, yeah, just talk to me. I will share that certainly. It's an open data and it was fun to create. So maybe Dale, you would like to talk about this one.
Yes, well, thanks, Dmitri. Thanks, everybody. Most people actually did stay for the overtime here. So, but just like the NFL, it ends suddenly, and here we are, and the webinar is just about over. But thanks so much, Dmitri, for your creativity and your passion and your deep, deep knowledge that you shared with all of us today. It's so inspiring to see what can be done, and I have to admit that I personally get a lot of joy out of seeing the amazing things that people like you and like Philip and our other customers do with FME all the time. If you want to see more of that, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes what is shown at these conferences, but we've got one coming up. September will be here before we know it. We're heading to Bonn, Germany. I think there's room for about 1,000 people, and we're thinking it could get sold out. So I guess you'll want to keep that in your calendar and watch to register as soon as it becomes possible to do that. But the Peak of Data Integration, our FME user conference, will be happening in Europe, and it's a partnership this time between SAFE and Conterra. And we really appreciate our Conterra friends who have thrown a conference like this for many years, but this time we're coming alongside and inviting the rest of the world to join us. And so that should be absolutely fantastic. And so hope to see some of you there. And I think that's pretty much it. I noticed that as we were going along, we've been following along with the Q&A quite well. If anybody has anything they want to ask Dmitri, go ahead and type that in right now, and we'll wait a minute or two. Otherwise, we'll let you get on with the rest of your day. It is a little bit overtime, but not too bad. And I know you're going to be excited to get all these materials and try to recreate aspects of this as are practical and useful for your environment. But this is really the first of a couple of webinars that we're doing on what we're calling democratizing spatial data into formats like Word and PDF and PowerPoint and other things, and starting to see that becoming a more common end point for data. So let's see, any questions in the chat? We got people thanking us. And Elizabeth has given you lots of the various links that support this. And please do the survey before you take off or as you take off. But otherwise, I think it looks like we might be done. We would maybe hand it off to Elizabeth to tell us if we can, like Ferris Bueller, like go home now, or do we?
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you, Dale, Dmitri, and Philip. That was fantastic. And thank you to our whole audience here this morning. As Dale mentioned, if you do have a moment to fill out that survey, we really appreciate any feedback. And with that, yes, you may go home, as Dale said.
It's over now. But no, and again, Dmitri, just appreciate you sharing with us all of that you've learned and your passion for teaching and for cartography and for FME. It's always wonderful. And also Philip, it was so inspiring to see I didn't know that was Philip's first outing, basically his first date with FME, and what a great first date that was that he shared with us all today.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.